The biggest criminals work for the system. Inside Pelican Bay's corrupt machine. The night shift at Pelican Bay was supposed to be quiet. But at 2:17 a.m. the control room lights flickered, then everything went black. Moments later the echo of boots thundered through the D-block corridor. A single flashlight beam cut through the darkness, and stopped at something shocking. An inmate was hanging, arms bruised, face swollen, his jumpsuit torn. But this wasn't the part that made guards freeze. It was the fact that the surveillance camera above him had been smashed, from the inside. And standing a few feet away, caught in that dim light, was Sergeant Morris, the same officer who was supposed to be on watch that night, his hands trembling, his shirt stained with something dark. The room fell silent. A radio crackled once, then died again. Somewhere in the shadows another guard whispered, "We're not supposed to see this." That was the moment everyone inside Pelican Bay realized. The biggest criminals weren't the ones in the cells. They were the ones running them. 3 months earlier the prison felt like a machine. Every sound timed, every movement controlled. Guards marched in perfect rhythm. Inmates moved in silent lines, heads down, no sudden moves. To outsiders, Pelican Bay was the fortress that kept the worst of the worst locked away. But inside, it was a kingdom built on fear, and ruled by men who wore badges. One of those men was Sergeant Morris. He'd been at Pelican Bay for over a decade, respected, feared, and untouchable. He didn't shout, didn't threaten, he didn't have to. His look alone could stop a riot. Or start one. To most new guards, Morris was a mentor. But to the inmates he was something else, an executioner who didn't need a gun. He had a secret list, names of inmates who'd disappeared into solitary after crossing him. Some came back broken. Some didn't come back at all. And when Internal Affairs started asking questions about a missing inmate, Rico Alvarez, Morris laughed it off. Probably transferred, he'd say, sipping coffee from a cracked mug. But the truth? Rico never left Pelican Bay. A week before he vanished, Rico had smuggled a note to a journalist through a prison nurse. The note said, "If I disappear, tell them it's the guards. They run everything." At first no one believed it. Until another inmate, nicknamed Torch, claimed he saw something through the vents that night. He said guards dragged Rico into the shower block after lockdown. He said they turned off the cameras. He said Morris was there. But Torch didn't live long enough to testify. He was found 2 days later, dead from what the official report called self-inflicted wounds. Except there was one problem. His hands were cuffed behind his back. Inside the prison, whispers turned into fear. Inmates started refusing to talk, to eat, to move. Because they knew, speaking meant disappearing. But what no one expected was that one of their own, the guards, would finally break the code of silence. Officer Daniels, a rookie barely 6 months in, stumbled onto something he wasn't supposed to see. He noticed that camera footage from D-Block was always missing during certain shifts, always when Morris was in charge. He noticed inmates on Morris's problem list would vanish from the logs. And then he saw the file, hidden in the system, listing payout transfers to correctional staff from an unnamed supplier. He didn't understand at first, until he realized those suppliers weren't companies. They were gangs. The same gangs the prison was supposed to control. Daniels tried to report it to his superior. But the next day his locker was trashed, his tires slashed, and a note slid under his door. "Stop digging or you'll end up like Alvarez." He stopped talking after that, but he didn't stop watching. He began keeping copies, USB drives hidden behind air vents, files backed up to an old laptop. And when the blackout hit that night, he knew it wasn't just a power failure. It was cleanup time. As the alarm screamed, Daniels grabbed his hidden drive and ran for the communications office. He had evidence. Names, dates, bank accounts. Proof that Pelican Bay wasn't just corrupt. It was being run by the same people it claimed to lock up. But before he could reach the exit, someone was waiting in the hallway, Morris. The sergeant's face was calm, his voice steady. "You think you're saving them, kid? You're not. You're saving me." Then Morris smiled, the kind of smile that told Daniels this wasn't over. And that's when the lights went out for the second time that night. When the power came back on, Pelican Bay was chaos. Sirens howled across the yard. Flashlights sliced through the dark like searchlights at war. Guards were shouting, inmates were banging on their doors, and in the middle of it all, Officer Daniels was gone. No one had seen him leave. No one had seen him taken. The only thing left behind was his radio, lying in a puddle near the communications office, still crackling faintly with static. And somewhere deep inside D-Block, Sergeant Morris smiled to himself. Earlier that same day, Daniels had gone to someone he thought he could trust. Lieutenant Harper. Harper was old school, 20 years on the job, quiet, respected. He'd seen corruption before, he'd seen beatings get covered up, he'd even seen evidence disappear. But he wasn't like Morris. At least that's what Daniels thought. He walked into Harper's office with trembling hands, clutching the USB drive. "Sir, I think there's something you need to see," Daniels said. Harper looked up from his paperwork, his expression unreadable. "Sit down, son. Take a breath." Daniels plugged the drive into the computer and opened the files. There it was: video logs, internal memos, bank statements, transfers from dummy corporations, wire trails leading to correctional officers' private accounts. And one of those accounts belonged to Harper. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The only sound in the room was the hum of the computer fan. Then Harper stood up, walked to the window and said quietly, "You shouldn't have come here, Daniels." Daniels felt his stomach drop. "What are you saying?" Harper turned slowly, his face hard now. "Do you have any idea what happens when someone like you stirs up the system? You think you're exposing criminals? You're just threatening the wrong paycheck." That night, Daniels didn't go home. He knew his phone was tapped, his car probably bugged. He slept in the staff lounge, pretending everything was normal. But he wasn't pretending anymore, he was planning. He copied the files to 3 more drives. One he hid behind a vent in his locker. Another he mailed to his sister, a paralegal in Sacramento. And the last he tucked inside the lining of his boot. If anything happened to him, someone would know. But Morris already did. At 1:56 a.m., the security feed from D-Block cut out. At 2:01 the emergency power failed. At 2:05, Daniels' radio went silent. Meanwhile, inside the SHU, the security housing unit, rumors spread like wildfire. Inmates whispered that a guard had gone missing. Others claimed they saw men in riot gear dragging a body toward the maintenance tunnels. And one inmate, a man known only as Finch, swore he heard Morris talking through the vents. He said, "We clean our own mess." By morning, the warden called an emergency meeting. All guards were ordered to stay quiet, all shifts locked down, all reports sealed. Officially, Daniels had requested reassignment. Unofficially, everyone knew what that meant. But what Morris didn't know was that Daniels' sister, Kelly, had already opened the package. Kelly wasn't supposed to be involved in this world. She worked long hours in a small Sacramento law office, filing motions and answering phones. She had no idea what her brother was caught up in. Until the envelope arrived. Inside was a flash drive. No note. No return address. Just one file labeled, PB, the machine. When she opened it, her hands shook. She watched grainy footage of guards beating inmates in blind spots. She saw paperwork showing secret payments labeled as facility maintenance. And then, she saw her brother's face in a visitor log time-stamped hours before the blackout. He was the last person to sign in before the system went down. She called him that night, but his number was disconnected. And by morning, 2 unmarked cars were parked outside her apartment. Back at Pelican Bay, Morris stood in the break room, sipping his usual coffee. On the TV above him, a news report played. Officials at Pelican Bay State Prison have confirmed an internal investigation into alleged staff misconduct, following the sudden disappearance of a correctional officer. Sources claim the missing officer had raised concerns about corruption within the facility. The camera cut to a photo of Daniels. For the first time, Morris looked nervous. He muttered under his breath, "That kid didn't listen." He turned to Harper. "We need to shut this down before Sacramento gets involved." Harper nodded. "There's still one file we can't account for," he said. "The sister has it." Morris set his cup down. "Then she won't for long." That evening, the wind howled outside Pelican Bay, carrying the chill of the Pacific through the razor wire. Inside, the prison hummed like a beast trying to swallow its own secrets. And somewhere beyond those walls, Kelly Daniels started her car, unaware that 2 dark SUVs were already following her down the highway. Because in Pelican Bay, justice isn't blind. It's bought. The rain came down hard that night, heavy, cold, and relentless, turning the highway into a mirror of headlights and shadows. Kelly's hands gripped the steering wheel tight as she checked her rearview mirror for the 3rd time in a minute. The black SUV behind her didn't have its headlights on. It kept the same distance no matter how fast she went. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Hello." A deep voice on the other end said, "You've got something that doesn't belong to you." Her heart stopped. "Who is this?" "Let's just say we work at the same place your brother did." Then the line went dead. She threw the phone onto the passenger seat and pressed harder on the gas. Behind her, the SUV sped up too. And then, its lights turned on, blinding her through the rain. 2 hours earlier she'd gone to the only person she could think of for help, journalist Mason Rivera. He'd covered police corruption stories for years, and her brother had once mentioned him as someone who still told the truth. When she showed Mason the drive, his face went pale. "Where did you get this?" he asked. "My brother, he worked at Pelican Bay. He's missing." Mason leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temple. "I've seen rumors about Pelican Bay for years, but this," he pointed to the screen. "This isn't just abuse. It's a network. Money moving from inmate accounts to shell companies, then into officers' pockets." He scrolled through more documents. And there it was again, Sergeant Morris. His name on transfers, signed off on security equipment upgrades that never existed. Next to that, Harper's name too. Kelly asked, "So what do we do?" Mason sighed. "We take it public. But once we do, you'll have a target on your back." She didn't care. "All I want is my brother's name cleared." Mason nodded. "Then we move tonight." Back inside Pelican Bay, Morris stood in the security office, reviewing the overnight surveillance feeds. The storm made the monitors flicker. Half the cameras in D Block were still under maintenance, meaning no one outside his circle could see what really went on inside. Harper walked in, closing the door behind him. "She's talking to a journalist," he said. Morris's jaw tightened. "Rivera?" "Yeah. He's known for digging where he shouldn't." Morris poured another cup of coffee, calm as ever. "Then we'll dig deeper." Before he does, he pulled out a small folder marked Containment. Inside were photos of Kelly, her apartment, her office. And one more, her car parked outside Mason's building. Morris looked at Harper. "You know what to do." At 9:42 p.m. as Kelly left Mason's office, Mason stayed behind to back up the files onto a secure server. He didn't notice the flicker of headlights outside his window, or the faint click of a silenced weapon. 3 minutes later, a muffled shot echoed through the alley. The glass shattered, the computer screen went dark, and Mason Rivera, the one man willing to speak the truth, fell to the floor. When Kelly's phone rang minutes later, she thought it was him. It wasn't. It was Morris. "Kelly," he said, his voice low and smooth. "I told your brother not to make this mistake. You should have listened too." She slammed the phone down, heart racing. Her mind screamed one word: run. She turned off the main highway and sped into the back roads leading toward Crescent City. The rain was heavier now, blurring the road ahead. The SUV behind her closed in. She could barely see, barely think, but instinct took over. She swerved down a dirt road and killed the headlights. For a few seconds, nothing but the sound of rain on the roof. Then footsteps. Slow, heavy, getting closer. A flashlight beam crossed her windshield. Kelly crouched down, breath shallow. The flashlight moved to the side, then disappeared. A car door opened. She heard voices, 2 men, one calm, one impatient. "She's got the drive," the first said. "Check the car." "Already did." "It's not here." "Then she's close." Kelly's hand trembled as she reached for the glove compartment. Inside, her brother's old badge. She whispered, "I won't let them bury you, Danny." Then she opened the door and ran into the woods. By morning the storm had passed. The forest was quiet, except for the distant sound of a helicopter circling overhead. Kelly stumbled through the trees, mud on her hands, the flash drive still hidden in her jacket lining. She knew she couldn't go home. She couldn't go to the police, they were the problem. So she headed for the one place left, Sacramento State Prison Oversight Office. But what she didn't know was that Harper was already there, smiling, shaking hands, pretending to be the man in charge of cleaning up Pelican Bay. Behind his back, a reporter whispered, "Is it true one of your own officers went missing?" Harper's grin never wavered. "Pelican Bay runs on order," he said. "Sometimes that means tough choices." And in a small motel 2 towns over, Kelly opened her laptop and began uploading the files. Every document, every video, every name. The progress bar moved slowly. Too slowly. At 83%, her screen froze. Then a message appeared. "Access denied, user blocked by admin." She froze. Because only one person could have that kind of access. Sergeant Morris. Outside, an engine roared. Headlights swept across her window. Kelly closed the laptop, heart pounding. She peeked through the blinds. 3 black SUVs were pulling into the parking lot. She whispered to herself, "They found me." Then she grabbed the flash drive, stuffed it into her boot, and climbed out the bathroom window into the pouring rain. Behind her, men in tactical gear kicked in the motel door. One of them looked around the empty room and cursed. "She's gone." Another voice, The familiar, calm one of Sergeant Morris said. She won't get far. Nobody ever does. The sound of thunder rolled across the sky. And as lightning flashed, Kelly ran into the darkness, alone, terrified, but still holding the only proof that could bring Pelican Bay's empire to its knees. Kelly ran until her lungs burned and her shoes filled with mud. The forest around Crescent City felt endless, dark pine trees whispering secrets under the rain. Somewhere behind her, dogs barked. Searchlights cut through the fog. She ducked behind a fallen log, trying not to breathe too loud. The flash drive in her boot pressed hard against her ankle. That tiny piece of metal now held the truth, proof that Pelican Bay wasn't a prison. It was a business built on suffering. Inside the file were invoices for ghost inmates, prisoners who didn't exist but still brought in state funding. There were medical forms signed by dead men. And worse, lists of real inmates sent into solitary after refusing to cooperate with guard-run rackets. All under the command of Sergeant Morris and Lieutenant Harper. Kelly whispered to herself, "Danny, I'm getting this out. I promise." Hours later, she stumbled onto a dirt road and flagged down a passing truck. The driver, an older man named Walter, slowed down, suspicious. "Where you headed, miss?" "Anywhere but here," she said, soaked and shaking. He looked at her muddy clothes and bruised hands but didn't ask questions. "You look like trouble," he muttered, "but the kind I don't mind helping." Walter drove her to a small diner off Route 101. Inside, the smell of coffee and fried eggs filled the air. Kelly found a payphone in the back and called the only other contact on Mason Rivera's list, an investigative producer named Nina Cole from a major news network. Nina's voice was calm but urgent. "Kelly, Mason sent me a backup file before he died. I know what's happening. You need to get to San Francisco. We'll keep you safe." But as Kelly hung up, she noticed something. Through the window, two men in plain clothes watching her from a parked car. They weren't eating. They weren't talking. Just watching. She grabbed her bag, whispered thanks to Walter, and slipped out the back door. The men got out of the car seconds later. She heard one of them speak into his radio. "She's moving. North side exit." Kelly ran through the alley behind the diner, jumped a fence, and disappeared into the woods again. She was learning what her brother already knew. At Pelican Bay, justice isn't about right or wrong. It's about who controls the story. Chapter 5. Meanwhile, inside Pelican Bay, things were unraveling. The press had started sniffing around. News headlines read, "Missing officer linked to prison corruption," and "Pelican Bay guard's family targeted after whistleblower report." The warden called an emergency meeting. Cameras were banned. Phones confiscated. Sergeant Morris stood by the wall, silent, arms crossed. When the warden demanded answers, Morris spoke softly. "You want this to go away? Then you let me handle it." The warden hesitated. "You're not authorized." Morris cut him off. "I built this place. You just sign the papers." That night, a transport van rolled out of Pelican Bay with no paperwork, no route, and no inmate manifest. Inside that van, 3 guards and 1 man bound and hooded. His name was Torres, a maintenance worker who'd seen too much and talked to reporters. By morning, Torres was missing. The prison called it an escape. The inmates called it what it really was, a message. Back on the coast, Kelly finally reached San Francisco. Nina Cole met her in a dim parking garage near the docks, cautious but determined. She handed Kelly a burner phone and a key to a safe house. "You're not safe yet," Nina said. "These files, they go all the way up. Warden, state auditors, even a senator on the correctional board." Kelly's voice trembled. "Then why hasn't anyone stopped them?" Nina looked her straight in the eye. "Because the system protects itself. And when the biggest criminals work for the system, the only way to fight back is to make the whole country watch." Together, they planned a live news broadcast to expose Pelican Bay's secrets. But as Nina uploaded the files to the network's encrypted servers, her screen glitched. Then a message appeared. "Unauthorized access detected. Trace in progress." Someone inside the network was helping Morris. That same moment, hundreds of miles away, Harper stormed into Morris's office. "You told me this was under control." Morris didn't even look up. "It is." "Then why is her face on the news?" Harper yelled, slamming a newspaper on the desk. Morris smiled faintly. "Because I want it there." Harper froze. "What do you mean?" Morris leaned back. "Let her talk. Let her think she's safe. The more attention she gets, the easier it'll be to find her." 2 days later, Kelly's story broke nationwide. Every major outlet ran headlines. "Whistleblower exposes corruption at Pelican Bay." State investigation launched into Supermax facility abuse. On TV, Kelly's recorded testimony played. Her voice was steady, her face pale under the studio lights. My brother tried to expose what was happening inside Pelican Bay. The system silenced him. But I won't let them silence the truth. The footage spread fast. Within hours, protests erupted outside California's Department of Corrections. Justice for Daniels signs filled the streets. For the first time, people were asking the right questions. And for the first time, Pelican Bay's walls started to crack. Inside, inmates refused to eat. Guards whispered about investigations and indictments. Morris watched the chaos unfold on the news monitors and muttered, "She thinks she's winning." But deep down he knew, if she survived long enough for the feds to act, everything he'd built would collapse. He picked up the phone. "Harper, it's time." And that night, the safe house door creaked open. Kelly, half asleep, sat up instantly. Nina wasn't there. Her phone buzzed with a single message. "Run." Seconds later, the lights went out. Footsteps echoed down the hall. Kelly grabbed her laptop and bolted through the window, landing hard on the pavement below. A black SUV screeched around the corner, same model as before. She ran into the street, weaving through cars, horns blaring. A gunshot cracked the air. A bullet shattered a nearby window. She ducked behind a dumpster, clutching her chest. Her heartbeat thundered louder than the sirens. She looked down, her jacket torn, blood on her sleeve but not her own. She opened her hand. Inside it, Nina's press badge. By dawn, Kelly was gone again. No phone, no car, no trace. Only a rumor that she'd been seen near the Golden Gate, wearing a gray hoodie, carrying a backpack. Meanwhile, the FBI raided Pelican Bay. Agents swarmed the prison, seizing hard drives, files, and surveillance tapes. Reporters surrounded the gates as helicopters hovered above. Warden Brooks was taken out in handcuffs, shouting that he didn't know. Harper tried to run but was caught at a checkpoint with $80,000 cash in his trunk. And Morris? He was nowhere to be found. They searched his house, his locker, his office. Empty. All that remained was a single sticky note on his desk. The system never falls. It just rebuilds. 2 weeks later, a new file surfaced on the internet. Anonymous upload. Titled, "The Machine, Final Proof." Inside, videos, contracts, and a confession. Morris's voice recorded in secret. "People think the inmates are the monsters. But the truth is we made them that way. It's good for business." The video went viral overnight. Millions watched. The world finally saw what Pelican Bay really was. But the last clip showed something else. A timestamp, 4:37 a.m., and a blurred reflection in a mirror. A woman's silhouette holding the camera. It was Kelly. The closing scene fades in. A quiet beach. Waves crashing. A woman walking barefoot along the shore, the sun rising behind her. She stops, looks at the horizon and whispers, "For you, Danny, we did it." Then she drops the flash drive into the ocean and walks away. A voiceover fades in. They said Pelican Bay was built to hold the worst of the worst. But sometimes the real criminals wear the keys. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and share for more videos like this.